Yeah, thank you so much for all of our panelists who are joining. We have Ming from LazAI, Jun from GAIB, and also Ram from OpenLedger. So very excited to be hosting this panel discussion on what's really defining our open intelligence layer. And as our narratives with ZK and AI converge together, we're really faced with the question of who owns the narrative, adoption, about developer mindshare, and what goes into developing this intelligence layer. So I'm wondering if we could first start off with an introduction from all of our panelists. If you could briefly introduce yourselves as well as your roles in the projects that you're working on.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Ming. I'm the co-founder of LazAI. And I also co-founded ZKM, so I'm both AI and ZK.
Hello, everyone. This is Jun. I'm the co-founder and CTO of GAIB. So I replaced Coney since we have so many conflicts of the meetings and the panels and talks. So what we're doing is turning the AI data center into a yield-bearing asset that people can directly get exposed to the yield and the return of the whole AI data center. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, that's it. So that's Michael, by the way. Hey guys, this is Ram. I'm one of the co-founders of OpenLedger. We are a blockchain network for AI. It's a layer 2 that enables people to contribute data sets and build AI models. And I'm not sure how much you guys are able to hear, but just make out of it. And but good to see you guys here.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael, co-founder and CEO of Zero-G. At Zero-G, we're building the largest AI layer 1. I'm ex-Microsoft, Bain, Bridgewater Associates, also started a unicorn Web2 company before.
Yeah, thank you all. So for this first question, I wanted to start off broad and ask each of you, there's some feedback. I wanted to ask each of you what you believe this new intelligence layer should consist of, whether it be new DA infra, agents, and also in enabling this new intelligence layer, what sort of new applications can we expect that weren't previously possible?
I'm not able to hear you at all. Did you hear her? Yeah, I can't hear you.
You couldn't hear me? Okay. Yeah. No worries. Can you hear me now? Better? Okay. Okay, sounds great. So for this question, I wanted to start off broad and ask each of you what you think is important that will consist of this new intelligence layer. So whether it be new DA infra, agents, whatever else. And also in creating this new intelligence layer, I'm wondering if you guys can also speak of some applications that will come about of it that may not be enabled if this that weren't previously able to be created.
Yeah, if you're talking about a new intelligence layer in Web3, we basically have to redesign the entire infrastructure in order to support AI fully on chain. That starts at every part of the layer. It starts at the storage stack. It starts at the DA stack. It starts at the compute stack. You need inference that's fully verifiable, permissionless, decentralized. You need a new layer 1 infrastructure in order to even run things efficiently on chain. So many people in this space I've seen don't think of it from a first principles perspective. So if I wanted to run a 100 million consumer app that does something like, I don't know, let's say Instagram or a social game or something like that, do you have a sense of how many TPS do you need on chain? Most people can answer the question, but assuming there's 10% daily active users and they do 5 transactions a day, it's 10K TPS. So, but then if you take AI and you need to run fully on-chain training processes, not only do you need hundreds of gigabytes of data throughput, you also need to be able to have 100,000 plus TPS kind of fully on-chain. So I think every part of the stack essentially needs to be redesigned for AI fully on-chain. And then the type of applications that are possible are things like Can I have an agent that designs a trading strategy for me? Can I have agents that abstract a lot of the difficult user experiences within Web3? Things like bridging, things like trading different coins back and forth, and so on. So I think that'll be the first, and then later we can add more things like policing agents and seeing if things like data poisoning attacks are happening on chain, and so on. So in my view, everything has to be rebuilt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with blockchain being adopted even in AI, I think it's time to rethink the consensus as only for like cryptocurrency kind of mindset. It's been like, even since the beginning, people are trying to utilize blockchain as like a data log, right? It's not just for like numbers as like token that needs very simple but rigid consensus. But data are different. Data kind of are from different people and essentially different point of view. So data are not all relevant to all of the people all the time. So what we here at LazAI, we promote a rethink of the consensus layer as point of view data where consensus are actually fractal. So this is actually good because you don't need that kind of all rigid consensus for all the nodes and all the people. So in that way, we can sort of redesign the roles of, let's say, like layer one consensus layer as a dedicated consensus framework for different relevance of consensus of the data that people are dealing with. And you can then delegate the compute to, let's say, like layer 2 and the intelligence like AI to maybe like layer 3. So that way we can have an efficient but also very practical way of reaching consensus in the new data world instead of like just the crypto world.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think before answering the question, I would like to go back and redefine what intelligence is. So in my honest opinion, like intelligence is a knowledge, right? That before all of the technology that exists, knowledge is something that bound to a human beings. It's something that you cannot be stolen from, right? And then you just hold it. But by utilizing blockchain, I would say it's the first time that we can concretize it, making concrete that it can be tokenized or it could be transferred as an object. So like for the intelligence layer, right? So it could be something that, okay, on the knowledge that could be tokenized. The knowledge could probably comes from human beings or even comes from AIs, right? But after it's been tokenized into an object, it could be, yeah, there are so many things that could be built on top of it. So for example, from our point of view, so we are building an economic layer. We are financialize all of the objects that hasn't been treated as a financial product before. So let's say, okay, so for the application that will be built on top of this, after it can be tokenized, right? The knowledge generated or the knowledge from AI or knowledge from human beings, it doesn't matter, right? It must be some knowledge, specific things that comes from some organic, like human beings, right, or organic people. It could be, and it could be concretized as an ownership, right? It could be like transferred and then it will be owned by someone. So if you own something that's a specific knowledge, right, you can probably generate revenue, right? Let's say you are a lawyer or you're an accountant, right? You actually generate the revenue from your knowledge. So AI could also have this ability to generate from the knowledge when it grows, right? And this could be treated as a financial product that could be owned or that could be kind of like invest, right? So that's why we create an economic layer that on top of this, that could enable every type of object to make it, to financialize it as a as a financial product or even a financial primitive that for other people to build financial product on it. So I think for the application, I don't have a vision about like what it will look like, but I would see it's a promising area that combines the the blockchain and the AI, especially for the ZK, because it makes the ownership publicly verifiable. So you know that, oh, someone owns the knowledge, but you don't know the details of the knowledge and no one can steal it from. That's my take.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people are listening actually, but I'll still go ahead and talk. If we take a look at intelligence, right? All these generations across human civilization, we'll always go on for seeking additional intelligence, right? It's sort of like we always look for something which is an exocortex, right? We have our own brain and we want to have like a secondary brain that gives us intelligence to make better decisions, right? And this exocortex has been transitioning over the last 20, 30 years. It was initially a calculator as your exocortex, then you had the computer as your exocortex, then you had mobile. And I think now AI is your true exocortex out there, right? You can basically rely on another model which is going to provide you with intelligence so that you can make much better decisions. And that should be obviously not controlled by a couple of larger organizations, right? That's why decentralized AI exists. We don't want people to have models which is going to be like control our own lives, right? So if you take a look at it, larger language models, let's say like Llama or any kind of open source larger language models, they provide you with a very general intelligence, like your basic intelligence can be achieved from them. But how can you own that? How can you make that yourself, right? In terms of how OpenLedger sees this, that we want to enable people to go ahead and fine-tune these models, specialize these models on their own need. And for that to happen, they need to have the entire stack, right from the data contribution, for collecting the data, processing data, and providing with a tool to fine-tune that model, and then use that model be available in our platform and have that accessed by agents. And whatever revenue that makes, they want to be shared with the data contributors, right? So providing that end-to-end stack is very important, so that anyone can build their own models and own the intelligence. I think that is all about AI, and that's how AI will progress, I believe. Not one single model, one single intelligence will just rule them all. The models will be like OSs. It's like an operating system. What we build on top of that really matters, right? So that's how I see owning the intelligence layer is very important. Everyone needs to figure out how they want to use that intelligence layer for themselves. Like if it means that if someone wants to build their own financial model, not rely on ChatGPT, then they collect their own data sets. They have the community contribute those data sets, build a model with that, and then reward the data contributors as they provide. They're the ones who provide the knowledge, right? So I think owning the AI is very important. It's like initially we were supposed to own the internet, but we let a couple of organizations own them. We never could be part of it. AI gives you an opportunity where you can own them because there's a lot of open source development that is happening. We need to provide with the toolkit so that people can use products like us to build their own models, build their own intelligence, and then own them. So that's what I would think, yeah.
And I really like that kind of point you mentioned about giving users the choice into building their own kind of models, into using their own kind of models, instead of just providing just like one type of centralized model for everyone to use. So really great to hear the fronts that are being made on the developer experience side. And then from the rest of our panelists, you mentioned, Michael, about rebuilding like different parts of the entire stack. And Ming, you mentioned on LazAI's front about rebuilding that consensus layer. And for June, you mentioned about optimizing for that economic layer as well. So great to hear that there's different parts of this stack that are being optimized. And another part of this panel is relating to how we can separate speculation and hype with progress. So for any kinds of builders in the audience or any types of audience members who are, say, looking into this ZK AI intersection and want to filter out the projects that are, say, optimizing for long-term development versus those who, say, just are there for short-term hype. Is there any sort of advice that you can give to any of our audience members who are like who want to see what kind of approach? architects who, in looking for those projects who are optimizing for that long-term development?
I think it's relatively straightforward. If you look at the team, has the team done a lot of really groundbreaking research? Have they started other companies before? Have they had success in kind of their previous life? If not, it doesn't mean that the team can't perform, but that the likelihood already is lower based on that. 2, are they launching a token with a GitHub repo that's like very, very active, for example? Have they built a lot of their infrastructure out, and so on? And is the repo kind of just repurposing a bunch of off-the-shelf things, or they're actually doing something that's really groundbreaking with their technology? And so with that, I think you can already filter out 80% of projects in general. And then, of course, you can go much deeper from that, but I'll let the other panelists chime in on that.
Yeah, I think in this age, nobody builds from the ground up, right? So I think a principle like any project would should adopt is that your code base, your framework, kind of reflects your philosophy. In this, especially now, like blockchain, the AI, they all involve different kind of thinking. So the app you built for AI or Web3, it's not like you invent a new computer language or those kind of the things that it's kind of matured for over like decades, right? So these all reflect the new way of thinking, of compute, of integrate people's behavior within your code. This is started by blockchain because blockchain is the first kind of technology kind of involves human in the loop, right? So you're not just passive bystanders. So in that way, your app should reflect how you think of the interaction between human and the system. This is all abstract, but I think in the previous Web 2 kind of technology, there's a thing similar to this is like a GUI network, right? For example, like Google has this material, right? And Apple has its own. So it all reflects their own way of seeing the UI, the UX. So in Web3, it's not really about graphics interface, but it's because how you interact with, for example, your value, right? Your token represents your value, and how you treat privacy, how you treat like how do you prove decentralization, how you treat like sensitive resistance, all these principles. So, and this you don't let user to kind of program them on their own. Your framework should reflect your choice of that reflects your value. I think that's something in this, especially in this era, like the framework developers, app developers should think.
Yeah, so speaking of the intersection of ZK and AI, personally, I'm following up to like 2 things. First is a ZK ML, and the second thing is ZK VM. So for the ZK ML, but like if I want to like name a project or something like some projects or companies are doing things around it, I know there are many new projects and teams developing around these 2 technology, but I didn't follow up that much. So I also want to avoid the politics. So yeah, but I'm very bullish in this area. Like personally, I hold a cryptography PhD at Cornell. So I've been like working in this space for a long time, but like most of the cryptography things are like just stay in academia without actually having an application that people can feel it. So I'm happy that like ZKML or ZKVM or basically ZK technology, but not only limited to ZK. There are definitely other cryptographic primitives that could be used to build a better world with like either privacy, anonymity, but also like efficiency and scalability. There are so many divisions and aspects that cryptography can help blockchain. But speaking of like ZK, I think it's a very good technology and easier mechanism for normal developers to step into and develop something that could provide, I will call it public verifiability. So it's easier for people to know it's coming from you without leaking probably the ownership or the details of it, because why it is valued is because of the content itself, right? So if you leak it, probably it lose all the values. So you have to keep it. But at the same time, you have to persuade everyone to know and understand the value that you actually own it. So that's the biggest value I see for ZK pushing in the blockchain industry. And what blockchain could help for AI is that, okay, AI, everyone can train models, right? Like OpenLedger, everyone that provide the basic framework for people to leverage all of the papers and mathematics, right, to create their language model. In the future, they will have like image recognition or even speech recognition in the future. But the core problem is that most of them are open source. I'm not saying that open source is not good. I also contribute many open source softwares. But for you to actually create a uniqueness or the special value of something that you develop, you have to own it. You have to prove that it's something that only you have it. Second things, you will need to let people to use it, and for this part, we can leverage the blockchain, right? We can leverage the intrinsic economic layer of the whole blockchain, right? You can just directly pay it on chain in a very decentralized and trustless way, right? So you can purchase something like from others, right? From some or even rent it from the creator, right? The AI creator agents or any other AI related toolings, right? Directly on chain in a trustless way. And by combining ZK, it make it private, but at the same time it's verifiable. So in a way, it creates a better environment for a trustless exchange of a specific knowledge. So going back to the original question, I think like the intersection of this is something that is promising, and of course, like right now, it's in a bear market, but I think it's a good timing for more developers, cryptographers, security researchers to come into this area and actually try to seek what's the core issue that needs to be built. And happily, when I talk to more projects in this field, as we are also in this field, but more on the financial side, I would like to see more projects like solving the core issue. And I also talk to Ethereum Foundation. Like some of the researchers in them are actually focusing on building some application and toolings around it, actually making private AI more popular and easier for developer to build on top of. So, in short, and in conclusion, I think I'm very bullish in this intersection.
I think as everyone believes, ZK is truly the end game, but how it is useful right now is a question mark, right? Most of the time, if you take a look at it for practical applications, like for example, we have tried exploring ZK for one of the models that we're building for an e-commerce platform, where the data sets that we're collecting are very highly confidential, right? Because it has personal information of people. We tried exploring ZK-ML, but it's not very feasible because of the cost that it involved to actually train these models. We would need to figure out what kind of libraries, how it evolves. I think LazAI is also working on something like very unique on ZK-ML. I've been having conversations with the team, and we recently partnered with them as well. So if the cost is optimized, if you're able to fine-tune models and build models using ZK technology at much lower cost, then it makes sense. But for certain requirements, if the team is affording to spend a lot of money, they want privacy compared to anything else. They want to make sure the data that they use to train the models are 100% private. Then using ZK-ML would make sense. But for now, we've used TE networks to enable model training. That's good enough, but it's not the definite solution. As I told you, right, I think ZK-ML is a progressive work. We need to figure out where and how it can be used. We've tried exploring ZK for various other scenarios apart from ZK-ML or for training. We use ZK to prove that, okay, the data that is being contributed by a particular user is actual data that he owns, or he truly says what it is, right? So proving humanity proving his his profession or a skill. We've used ZK for that. On the training side, we're still exploring, as I told you. We might need to see better libraries, better options for us to explore working in ZKML. But I think on a longer term, where we need privacy much more, where models will be used for every app out there, where models will be used by every other company, a lot of personal information will be used to train models. You want to make sure that the data is private and the training is private as well. So ZKML will be the probable solution later on.
And on the topic for predictions for this new intelligence layer, I'm wondering if, just from your own personal opinions, if we can expect this new intelligence layer to be more...
Closer.
Okay, can you hear me better now? Okay, I'll try to project louder. If we can expect for this new intelligence layer to be more modular, or if we can expect it to consist of many different fragmented ecosystems that are fragmented, but at the same time are pluggable and specialized. So wondering if you guys had any predictions in terms of the modularity for this new intelligence layer.
We are building in a modular way, so our hypothesis is very much around modular infrastructure, modular architecture. The benefit of modularity is that essentially you can pick and choose. For example, you don't need to use all of our components. You don't need to use our layer 1, our storage system, our inferencing system, our fine-tuning system. You can just use one of them and be on a different chain, for example. We just believe that that gives the most options for builders to build in whatever way they want to build. And so very similarly, maybe this new intelligence layer, as you're describing it, will have different components that you need to use at different times. So maybe you're building an agent that doesn't need to use long-term memory. Okay, so then you don't need storage in that case. You can just use local cache if you wanted to, for example. But you definitely need to use inferencing, and so you will use the inferencing layer instead. So we believe it's the most powerful way to build because it gives you the most options, and so therefore I think modularity will win long term.
Yes, so LazAI and combined with projects like ZKM, we're kind of promoting a beyond modular kind of approach because the value networks are very sticky, right? So if you build a value network, it's very difficult to just for example, you can fork Ethereum, you can fork Bitcoin, but that won't amount to anything because you can't fork their value. So the way to do this is not to kind of try to fragment it even further by creating new value networks from scratch, right? There must be legit reason for you to do that. But a different way of thinking is that you can actually build on top of it. You can add it in, not just do addition, not do subtraction. Because if you fork, you will kind of subtract values from it, and everyone loses in that way. So we promote a way of thinking, a concept of individual-centric DAO, where you can just tag along, where DAOs or organizations, right, are not creating new boundaries, because the boundary is actually at the individual. So for you to add or get value from the existing value network, you just tag them, right? You just put a label on them, and you're part of the network. So this actually are pioneered by, like when it comes to the Stellar network, they have something called the quorum slides, which is a very dynamic committee that you don't have a fixed one. So it's very easy. You can come and go, right? That's very central to the value of decentralization. And also what we call point of view data, where I mentioned earlier, the consensus are actually forming among the smaller networks, right? People you have a stake, people and your users, your larger networks. And for that, you don't need the whole globe, the global consensus, right? You need what we call a fractal consensus, and it's way cheaper to reach that kind of consensus. And your token would be anchored to that data of your, small network of fractal consensus. So this all kind of adds to the existing value networks. And from the crypto side, ZKM using ZKVM, you could develop something called entangled network, where you use zero-knowledge virtual machine to prove any computation, general purpose computation. So you don't need to create your own layer 1 consensus network. You can have it verified. You can have it verified on Bitcoin, where BitVM. You can also have it verified on Ethereum using any proof network, proof network. So you don't need to change existing value networks, but to add to it. So I think this is the way in the big explosion of Web3 apps and AI apps.
Yeah, I believe other panelists have better standpoint than me to talk about the actual prediction of the AI, since they are all AI pros. And then for my project, it's more of the financial layer. I focus more on the vision after we have all this prediction. So why would I say that? Because in the long term, I expect we will have better AI models, better AI agents, or even cheaper computing resource, and also better privacy layer as we are doing research and exploring the different cryptographic primitives. So in the long term, we will have better framework to build and wrap the intelligence in the future. And what I focus is the future and the prediction after we have this intelligence object, because we are the economic layer to turning everything into financial product. So in the future, I will see no matter what the prediction is, we will have a better AI and a private privacy future, and we will have better things better object based on AI to generate revenue. Then we can use our economic layer to wrap it as a even a new type of commodity. I mean, in traditional finance, a commodity is something that you can trade and you can build a future and option market on top of it. So by utilizing our economic layer, we can wrap all these predictions around AI into an asset that people can actually own and share the revenue generated by this, right? And then we can even put a structured product layer, future layer, derivatives, or even options on top of it, so people or traders can actually tap into the market they haven't thought about before. So my prediction is that AI in the future, by combining cryptography, not specifically for ZK, I totally agree Sam's opinions on ZK is not an end game, because there are definitely other things and pros and cons and trade-offs between cryptography. But in the long term, I would treat AI as an asset instead of just something that people use or a tool. It's an asset that you actually owned, and you can get the income from all the AI puzzles or components that you owned to live your life. So this is my prediction. And yeah, then that's what we are struggling and then trying to push the boundary, building the economic layer to wrap up the AI. So we are also pushing a new narrative called AI-Fi, because the finance around AI will be something really big. Yeah.
So your question is around how AI is modularized? What's the question?
Yeah, just your predictions on if you think that this new intelligence layer will be more modular.
Whether AI stack has to be modular?
Yes.
So AI stack obviously has to be modular because there is various parts to it, right? If you take a look at AI, there are three major components. One is data, there is models, and then the compute. And if you take a look at 3-4 years back when the ChatGPT moment happened, you had better data sets that was available, and you had a lot of compute, right? That is what led ChatGPT to have an OpenAI model, which is much better. Because Google came up with a model 3-4 years back, but it's not so useful because they didn't have the right data set, right? So every stack of AI has to be modularized to make sure that we try to excel on various of the stacks that is there. And if you take a look at in our case, right, we've kind of split between the data stack and the model stack. And we try to see how many people can go ahead and contribute data based on the models that is there. And you also want to encourage people to cross-use data sets, right? For example, if someone is contributing data sets regarding mental health, could also be used for a model that's being built for fitness, because mental health is something which is important for fitness as well. So how can we kind of like plug and play between these stacks is very important. A lot of people enable this to happen. As like I think Michael was talking about storage, right? Storage is a very key part of this overall AI stack that needs to be there. We look more on what can be done post the collection of data, like what can be done with the data, how can the data can be useful, how can you build better models, how these models can reward back to the data contributors. So model erasing is very important so that we can figure out which data was contributed by which user and how was he major influential in this particular model, and if that data was influenced, then why don't we go give back a reward back to him, right? For us to understand this, every aspect of the stack has to be broken down so that we can figure out which data was contributed by whom and why they're getting benefited as well. So, and there is a lot of people who are working on the various models sectors of AI as well. If you take a look at the traditional sectors, all of that is controlled by one single company. I don't think that will drive along when AI is becoming big. Once AI gets into every other sector, you want to make sure that it's just broken down and every one of us owns a piece of it and makes it better. So having it modelized just makes it easier for for a company to just focus on data, connect a lot of data. Another company to just focus on building models. Another company could just focus on building better agents on these models. So having that to be separate is very important.
Yeah, it sounds like we're really trying to go for that plug and play approach as opposed to just converging to just like a single standardized solution. But thank you so much for all of our panelists for joining today's panel. Yeah, really, really appreciate all the insights made.
Thank you, Alex.